Hey loves, what's up? Welcome to the handstand tutorial. Today we're going to talk about the basic mechanics of the pole handstand, and we'll break down some further pretty shapes in later tutorials. Okay, so let's dive right into what muscles we need to have warmed up for this. We're going to talk about some different entries you guys can practice, some common mistakes, etc. All right, so we're going to start with the warm-up, warming up our wrists, our core, our hip flexors, inner thighs, all the things. All right, so feel free to jump right in with me. We're going to start with just some wrist circles, getting these guys nice and warm. They have a lot of work to do in this movement. All right, now we're going to do wrist flicks or forearm flicks, whatever you want to call it. So hands out in front, you're going to flick your hands as hard as you can. Make that sound and move your hands and your arms in all directions. Out in front of you, down by your side. Flick, 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 flick. Your forearm should be warming up. Flick, 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 flick. Keep going. A few more. You can turn around in circles if that helps. Hands up overhead one more time. Okay, shake it up. Good job. Come down to the ground. We're just going to do some wrist circles. So hands about shoulder distance apart. Few circles to the left and few circles to the right. Come back to your heels. Turn your hands in all different directions, fingers facing all different directions. Just moving our wrists through some nice and easy range of motion. Nothing too intense. Great, shake it out. Okay, let's move to our shoulders. So first, before we go into an exercise, I'm going to just break down some shoulder mechanics in a handstand. So if you sit with your back against the pole, what often happens in our handstand is when our hands go overhead, in order to get our hands overhead, we compensate by what a lot of us know as the banana back, like this, okay? So what we want to focus on doing, and you can also practice this too, is keeping your mid back on the pole, so kind of like right around where your bra strap is. Keep that lined up against the pole. You can have a small space in your low back, that's fine. We're trying to keep the natural curves of our spine in this. So slight space in our low back, fine. We want our mid back pushing against the pole, and then try to raise your hands up overhead. It becomes a lot more difficult because we're no longer using our rib cage to compensate for this overhead mobility. So go ahead and set up with your back against the pole. Make sure you have a little space in your low back. Make sure around your mid back bra strap area is glued to the pole. I want you to raise your hands up overhead, and we're going to pulse our hands back, keeping our mid back glued to the pole. We're going to go for 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Hold back for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Shake it out. All right. So now we know in the pole handstand that one hand is on the ground pushing, the other hand is in more of an internally rotated position, and it's pulling. So what we're going to do to warm up our internal rotation is we're going to do the same thing, mid back pressing against the pole, nice tall natural curves of the spine. I want you to raise your hands up overhead, and we're going to internally rotate our shoulders. So Palms are no longer facing forward. Palms are now facing away from us. All right, mid-back still on the pole. Pulse back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Hold. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Shake it out. Shake it out. Shake it out. Okay. Now that we're right here, it's in the perfect position to warm up these hip flexors. Just going to turn around to this side. So I want you to grab the pole back behind you, legs straight out in front of us, knees super straight, toes pointed, grabbing on behind us, and I want you to try to lift your legs off the ground. Engage your hip flexors. Okay, we're going to go for 10 lifts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Hands out. Let's just go ahead and go for some nice cat-cow circles as a little reset. Awesome. All right, go ahead and grab your block. We're going to go through a couple plank holds, squeezing the block in between our legs. One of the muscle groups we sometimes forget about in the handstand is your inner thighs. We want to make sure we get those nice and activated. And in a plank position, it's going to obviously activate our entire body, core, back, everything. So go ahead and put the block in between your knees. Hands about shoulder distance apart. We're going to come into a plank position. Squeeze the block in between your legs without moving your hands or your toes. Pull your toes towards your palms and your palms back towards your hands. You should feel your core fire up. Okay? Straight legs. Squeeze the booty. Hold this. Breathe. Do a little dance. Woohoo! A little bit longer. 3, 2, 1. Good. And push back to downward facing dog. Continuing to squeeze the block in between your legs. All right. So now, go ahead and drop the block. Stay in your downward facing dog. And we're going to experiment with getting our spine into its natural curves in our downward facing dog. Okay? So go ahead and push your armpits down towards the floor. Let your chest sink. Stick your booty up. Now, try to tuck your ribs in. Keep a slight untuck of your tailbone. Head in between your shoulders. And you can video yourself too doing this. So this would be an unwanted position if we're going for natural curves of the spine, which is what we want in a handstand. This would be more wanted. Ribs tucked, slight untuck of tailbone. Good. All right, come down. Check it out. Good job. Okay, so next we are going to do some more shoulder lifts. You're going to come onto your stomach. You're going to put your block out in front of you. The higher up your block, the more difficult. This is what the exercise is going to look like. Lifts off the block, okay? So if it's super high, this is going to be someone that has very, very good overhead mobility. So start out with the block in you can start in its smallest setting, see how it feels. If it's like, oh wow, this is really easy, move it up. If this is like, oh my gosh, I can't move my hand, you can always do these just on the floor as well. Okay, the goal is to keep your head, neck, all relaxed, and we're just working on that shoulder flexion. So set up your block. We're going to go through 10 slow lifts on each side. So go ahead and relax your head, relax your neck, thumb facing up towards the ceiling, and lift. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hold for 3, 2, 1. Great. And switch sides. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Relax your neck. 8, 9, 10. Hold for 3, 2, 1. Good job, guys. Shake it out. All right, so we have our wrist warm. We have our shoulders feeling pretty good. We have our core fired up from our planks. Now let's go into a couple entrances. I want you all to experiment with the pole handstand. So first, I'm going to demonstrate what the handstand looks like, and then we will talk about some different entrances. Okay. All right. First option, we're going to practice bunny hops. All right. So that is going to look like one hand on the pole, thumb up. You want to place the pole on the back of your shoulder. All right. Hand about shoulder width away from the pole, so maybe like a foot. Experiment with what feels good to you. Your bottom hand is pushing down, okay? So push down with your bottom hand, and you're pulling down with your top hand that's on the pole. All right, so the bunny hops. You're going to start on your tippy toes. You're going to pull heels to butt and think about trying to get your booty over stacked on your hips. So jump, jump, jump. Okay? Once you start to feel comfortable with that, you can jump and try to hold that. All right, so jump, hold, down. All right, shake out your wrist. A nice little reset for your wrist. You can grab your fingers and pull on your hand as if your hand was a glove and you're trying to take it off. This was taught to me by one of my favorite teachers, Micah, and I love it. So try it. It's a nice little reset. You can always like pull your hand out and then twist your wrist. It feels good in between handstands. All right, so we have our bunny hops. Another option to get up into it, kicking into it. So that would look like one hand on the pole, one hand on the ground, inside or outside leg. It really doesn't matter. It's personal preference. Kick up. Pull down with this pole hand and push with the hand that's on the ground. Okay? So again, kick up. All right, that's option 2. If you're like, Steph, both of those really scare me. I'm not at that point yet. We're going to practice doing that from a chair or a stool, something that's going to get your feet off the ground. All right. So now put your stool about 2 feet away from the pole, hands on the ground, feet up onto your object, and you're going to tuck one leg in and then just try to float that other leg off your object. Float, float. And when you're like, hey, that feels pretty good, float, tuck, float, tuck, float, tuck. Okay? That progression may take days, weeks, months. It's okay. Work at your own pace. Try both sides. That floating off your object will come. Practice, practice, practice. Okay? We have bunny hops. We have kick up. We have use of a prop. If you're like, well, the bunny hops and kick ups are really hard. This feels really easy. You can use your block to just, or 2 blocks, whatever, or a stack of books to just give you a little bit of height off the ground. Okay? Okay? All right. So those are your entries. Now, some common mistakes. Let's talk about some things that we want to eliminate right off the bat. If we try to go into this and our head is sticking out like a cute little turtle's head, it's going to be more challenging to get our feet up and over, okay? So if we're like this and we're like, it's hard, all right? So where you are in this range, again, personal preference. Some people like to look straight in between their legs. That feels good to them. Some like to have a little bit of bend in their neck and just their eyes on the floor. So try that. But try not to have a full extended neck. It's going to make it very difficult to kick up. So experiment with head placement. All right, maybe just your eyes on the floor. Okay, another mistake, inner thighs. So our inner thighs, squeezing them together, keeping them engaged will make us feel more balanced. All right, so if we're here and we're kicking and our inner thighs are, as we may say, asleep, say hello. Maybe do a couple more planks with the block squeeze in between your legs. They are going to help us feel more stacked, more balanced. Okay, so don't forget about them. Another thing, some of us have this bottom arm locked out. We're like, this push feels good. We forget about the pull down. So set up into your starting position. Stop pulling. Pull. Stop pulling. Pull. Really feel what it means to pull in this rotated position on this shoulder. Okay? I'm going to do a couple like this so you guys can see. All right? So I'm like, okay. Head, pull down, say hello to my inner thighs, kick up. All right, and from this side. Head, check, pull down, push with this outside hand, Say hello to your inner thighs. Kick up. Down. All right. Now, this final thing we're going to talk about is one of those pole nemesis moves that we all want to get, the pole deadlift. So let's go over a couple drills for that, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, the pole deadlift. You're going to set up in the same way. The first thing I want you to try is jumping up and then slowly lowering down. I'll do a couple from here so you guys can see from a different angle. All right, so pole press negative. Jump up, straddle, down. Okay, or kick up, straddle, down. All right, doing it from blocks, you want the blocks maybe a little bit wider than hip distance apart. Go ahead and set up. For the press up, if you put your hand a little bit in front of the pole, that's closer to you, that can sometimes be helpful. It gives you a little bit more room to lean. Okay, so up on your tippy toes, press. Negative, back down. All right. I will say one thing that the press handstand will call upon that maybe the kick up doesn't is hamstring flexibility. So one of my favorite ways to just say hello to my hamstrings before press ups. Start in a forward fold, hands on top of your blocks, slight bend in your legs. And I want you to tuck your tailbone and then untuck your tailbone. This untucked position should feel more of a hamstring stretch than the tuck. Okay, so tuck, untuck. If this feels very easy to you, you can put your blocks down lower. Keep a squeeze in your quads, slight micro bend in your legs, tuck, untuck. Okay, breathe. All right, so then once you incorporate the blocks into your press up and you're like, I feel good with that, say goodbye to your blocks and say hello to the floor. All right, so then we have our final pull, straddle, deadlift. So set up, strong pull with this left hand, push down with this right hand, quads engaged, core compression, up, down. All right, guys, hope you enjoy that. Please send me your videos. Mwah!